Hi. So back in the 1980s, when the AIDS crisis burst onto the scene, so much changed. Before that, when it came to mainstream understanding of medicine, we thought in terms of what was called at that time allopathic medicine. People didn't feel you necessarily had to take care of your nutrition or your exercise or your lifestyle. You just kind of went about your life however it was, and you hoped you didn't get sick. And then if you did get sick, you looked to allopathic medicine, hopefully being an external remedy that would suppress or eradicate the symptoms. Well, when that allopathic model kept coming up empty during the AIDS crisis, people began exploring different modalities. And that's when the idea of what was at first called alternative medicine, then called complementary medicine, finally landed where it belonged, which is how we think of things today, integrative medicine, that there's the body and the mind and the spirit. You don't just treat disease, you proactively create health. And then if disease does happen, you certainly use external remedies where appropriate to try to eradicate or suppress symptoms, but you also call upon psychological issues, therapy and so forth, spiritual support groups and all that kind of thing. And today, even at the most prestigious academic institutions in the United States, they have things like meditation groups, spiritual support groups for people who are dealing with critical illness. Now, the reason I mention all that is because we now need an integrative model of healing our society, healing our culture, healing our democracy, and healing our world. And anybody who thinks that we can just apply external remedies to pushing back the assault on democracy that's happening today is actually not the sophisticated thinker they might think that they are, because everything on the outside is simply a projection of many internal dynamics that ultimately led to all that. Yes, they are emotional, they are psychological. There are objective discernible laws of the internal life, just like there are objective discernible laws of the external. So if you are interested in the idea of an integrative approach to dealing with the assault, the nothing short of fascistic assault on our democracy today, which will include doing the inner work. Martin Luther King said, we should not take, people should not take our material passivity as weakness, for we are spiritually active. The civil rights movement was as spiritually active as it was politically and socially active. So if you're interested in that and how that applies to dealing with what's in front of us today, I hope that you will join me, because I'll be teaching a free class, a Zoom class for paid subscribers to my Substack. That will be November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So there will be 3 one-hour classes. And we'll be talking about how do we get here? How do we really get here in terms of the consciousness of the nation, thoughts, feelings, a far, far bigger landscape of issues than just, well, there was this decision by the Supreme Court or this particular political policy decision, all of which are important, but it's also very important for us to see where did even that come from? Where did we lose the plot? What happened? What do we have to atone for? What do we have to make amends for? Where do we have to reclaim some vision? Where do we have to reclaim some aspects of consciousness that we just let slide? And that got us to where we are today. So go to mariannewilliamson.substack.com, and that'll be at 12 o'clock West Coast time, 3 o'clock East Coast time, November 23rd, 24th, 25th. And I hope you'll be with me, because this conversation, I think, is really important. Thanks.